Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the government's latest humiliating climb down, unless of course they enact another one before this video comes out, you never know. But here I'd like to talk about the fact that the government will not only help fund the feeding of children in deep poverty this Christmas, but are actually going to go further, which is brilliant news. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, before summer, people were calling for free school meal vouchers to be extended to families in food poverty over the summer holidays, which doesn't normally happen. But in the middle of a pandemic, it's made people more aware of the inequalities in society. The government refused, very forcefully. But then, under withering public pressure, they relented and U-turned. Then it happened again. Well, they'll need feeding over Christmas as well, we said. No, they won't, said the government. And they fiercely defended starving the Tiny Tims of Britain, or actually England, because the devolved administrations in the other parts of the UK did extend the scheme. But they thought, no, they don't need feeding over Christmas. Now, when responding to a Tory MP who was trying to defend the government's appalling and clearly unpopular policy, I had this to say. Then it goes on to say, we took the unprecedented step, which had never been done before in history, to extend free school meals over the summer holiday. Yeah, okay, great. It should be done every year. It shouldn't be the first time. It shouldn't be unprecedented. And again, why did you take that unprecedented step? Because you were forced to. Because angry constituents barracked you. Because one of our footballers made it a public issue. Because the newspapers ran with it. And I'll tell you something else. You'll be taking a second unprecedented step of funding it over Christmas as well. Because this pressure needs to build again. I do not believe that the British people would stop the government starving these kids over summer and allow them to do it over Christmas. I do not believe that we will do that. And here it is. It's quite timely, really, because I'd just done a video. It's quite bizarre. I did a video yesterday, which was really done the day before, showing a sudden deluge of social media trolling against me for those calls on the government to feed these children from weeks ago. And I said that, you know, had the government not U-turned at the time, that they would be doing so, you know. And then the news came through as actually that video was going live. And that's what's happened. You know, they have now U-turned. It was inevitable. Though, as I also said, I didn't expect it to be at the weekend, but it actually was. And now that it was, and people have pointed some things, it actually makes sense. The reports came in yesterday morning. I saw someone commenting on social media that this government was now trying to bury good news. That's why it came out on a weekend. And that was why the announcement will have been made yesterday. The U-turn was inevitable. Tory MPs knew that this was going to happen. The decision effectively had already been made, but they didn't want to announce it. As soon as they announce it, it's a humiliating climb down. They don't want that again and again. Just as the second lockdown was inevitable, they just didn't make the decision until they thought that politically it would be the least damaging for them. So, I mean, they did genuinely take a while to realise they were wrong, because they could have come out with this some credit. They've now adopted a policy for the second time that, had they done so without political pressure, would have been good, laudable. People would have applauded them for it. I would have done. But no. They go down the wrong path. They don't want to admit that they're wrong, so they take even longer to admit it. They look for the best time to announce it. Now, sneaking this climb down in, and they had several weeks to do it. They only had to announce it before Christmas. You know, they had over a month to do it. So sneaking this climb down in while their political opponents are cock-a-hoop over Biden's victory was obviously deemed the best time to do it. Because, actually, to be fair, I am going to have to point out here that most Conservatives also favoured Biden as well. That particular result is not all that partisan in this country. It just has to be said that the only people backing Trump really tend to be on that Conservative far-right side. So the upshot is that there's going to be financial support to help with food over Christmas, and real support, not the lies that the government told about there already being funds in the system. Oh, and we've made more available. No, they had not. Things that didn't exist. But it goes further than that. The amount pledged by the government at the first sight, when I first looked at it, looked like 10 times that needed simply to fund the extension of free school meals over Christmas. But the fund is not just going to help with food over Christmas. It doesn't even seem to be limited to children. It's going to help with bills, an extension of activities programme, and it's going to be going over the next year. Way more than was demanded, but obviously I suppose they've maybe seen the light. They knew that, you know, the Christmas thing was going to be then, and then there would be the next time and the next time and the next time. So they've just decided, you know what, we've lost. We're just going to fund it for the whole of 2021, which is what they've done. More than was demanded, but it now helps them avoid that, draw a line under the whole thing. But it did get me wondering at the start, why have they gone from being Scrooge to Scrooge? You know, they've gone from being Scrooge at the start of A Christmas Carol to the Scrooge at the end. You'd have thought somewhere in between, just enough to limit the political damage. Like I said, it seems to be linked to the general support as a result of the second COVID wave, which is intended to run to the end of March. And then there's other bits in the funding that are there for the rest of next year. That's what happens when you look at the detail. So it's not as generous as it first appeared. But that's okay, I'm not knocking it. I don't expect generosity from the Conservatives when it comes to the poor. Only their own friends. Had the government announced something like this without needing to be forced, I'd have applauded it at the time. Why not? As it is, I will still acknowledge that it's a good decision. It's a good policy because they've gone further. They've now seen ahead. They've seen what is popular in the country and they've gone, do you know what? This is now going to be the case. Albeit that they've been forced to do it against their inclinations. And because of that, we may also find that when it comes down to it, we have to be a little bit careful. We may find that the government try not to follow through on their entire pledge. And you may at that go, come on, this is a bit disingenuous, Phil. They've now announced the policy, give them the credit. Well, do we remember when another campaign caused a similar U-turn? I'm not talking about free school meals over summer this time, but the NHS surcharge for NHS workers. Now, for those unfamiliar, in the UK, the NHS is funded by the taxpayer. You know, we pay our income tax and national insurance. Portion of that goes to fund the NHS. However, if you're a non-UK citizen, then, and you're working in this country, you still pay all those same taxes, the same amount of those taxes. You're still funding the NHS to the same tune, but you pay extra as well on top of it. It's called the NHS surcharge, and it's a lot of money. In the UK, yes, you are actually taxed for being a foreigner. And it was particularly galling. I mean, it's bad at any time, but it was particularly galling that foreign NHS workers were actually being made to pay extra taxes in order to be able to access healthcare themselves at a time when they were going above and beyond to save all our lives during the pandemic. And it was not a small sum of money either. Public pressure forced the government to U-turn on that policy after defending it stubbornly, just like they did with the free school meals. But they never followed through. They announced that they were going to U-turn, everyone was delighted, and then they quietly did nothing. Safe in the knowledge that the government were getting so many things so dangerously wrong that when it was worked out that they weren't following through on this, nobody would make a big enough issue of it to force their hand again, because it's drowned out in all the other terrible things they're doing. And it may well be that the same thing happens again with this fund. After all, it will be kicking in at the start of Brexit, round just before the start of Brexit. Now, there's going to be an awful lot going wrong at the time. In fact, the whole of 2021. I keep saying I can understand how a lot of people around the world are just praying for 2020 to finish now. Thank you. We've had enough. Thank you very much. And they're looking forward to 2021 and maybe better times. In the UK, it's going to get worse, or it potentially will get worse. So this could easily nudge the issue out of the priority list again, and then the government may, silently just rein back on a few of these things, especially if Johnson actually delivers a chaotic Brexit in 2021. But that will be just something to be mindful and watchful over. For now, Marcus Rashford and his supporters have done it again, which is fantastic news for those who needed this help. As I said before, I refuse to believe that the British people would force the government to feed these children over summer, but let them go hungry this Christmas. I couldn't accept that. But then there's the politics. So the government will use this far into the future as an example of their compassion. That's fair enough. That's politics. That's how party politics works. But for the second time, they will have done so after publicly and forcefully refusing to do so until they were forced. This has now happened twice. And consider this from the point of view of Conservative MPs. So for the second time, they've been trotting out lies about how the welfare system already has enough in it to do the job, how it's actually the fault of parents, how it would be morally wrong to fund such policies. They've defended the government's position wholeheartedly, only for the government to turn right around and then go with the policy that those MPs attacked so savagely. Not for the first time, those MPs are going to look like heartless dicks. I mean, they are. But the thing about heartless dicks is they don't take humiliating defeat very well. Ask the orange one. They will be absolutely furious, filled with vengeance for Johnson yet again. And I wonder if they even knew he was going to announce this. Did they even get any warning? That seems doubtful to me. I would have thought if Conservative MPs were told this, let's say on Friday, the news would have leaked out somewhere. Someone would have leaked it out before yesterday. So I reckon those MPs were still in the dark. I can imagine them still writing emails to their constituents defending the decision to keep starving kids starving at exactly the same time as their partner or someone else would have been going, oh, have you seen the news? No, why, what? You might want to stop writing that email. The government have taken the opposite view again. But then these MPs only have themselves to blame. They keep saying how annoyed they are that the government keeps deliberately taking stances that are very far from the public mood and then turns when the political heat gets too high. They've got no backbone. But then what do these MPs do about it? Nothing at all. But those are my thoughts. It's very good news all round. Goodness knows, good news is like islands in a vast ocean at the moment, so I think we need to enjoy them while we can. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.